Hey guys, I'm Jacob. You are watching the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. I'm here today to talk to you about a very special knife. This is the Midnight Patriot from Redbeard Blades. This big old chunky boy is made out of 80 CRV2 and I think could be accurately defined as an apocalypse combat knife. Let's get right into it. Let's look at the specs and some of the up-close details, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this blade. So, like usual, let's talk about the blade, let's talk about the handle, and then we'll go into a bit of overall. It's a 1/4 inch thick, it's an absolute chunkster, but we do have this swedge here to give you a finer tip, a little bit more stabbing capability. We have a very thick edge on this guy, not stupidly thick like I've seen before, but very thick. And I'll talk about that in a little bit in a moment. The handle is big and beefy like everything else. It's nicely contoured, it's very secure in the hands. And we've got a big old choil for man hands. I'd like to call this a Michael Spaniers choil. My favorite leather guy is a very large human being, and his finger would probably fit perfectly in here. Actually, I'm doing this video kind of ahead of some other videos that I had planned, because I'm sending this knife off to Michael Spaniers himself. He's one of my favorite sheath makers to have a custom sheath made for it. So we will find out whether or not that choil fits his hand. Anyways, so the blade, it's thick, it's beefy. We'll talk about it again in a second. The handle, it's well contoured, it's very, very comfortable, it's very secure, and it's beefy. So overall, what's up with this knife? What's up with Redbeard Blades? The knife is 80 CRV2. I don't like thick edges when they are designed to make up for other issues, or when the design doesn't have the size or weight to justify a thick edge. So for instance, if this knife was made out of butter, and it had a thick edge so that the edge would be strong enough to cut and hold up to use because it was made out of butter, I'd have a problem with that. However, if you are making a hard use knife out of a hard use steel, like 80 CRV2 is, or 3V, or 8670, etc., then it makes sense. You're not making up for something, all right? So as long as the knife is now large enough to make up for that hard use edge, again, that's fine. Now, if we have a 5-inch blade, like, say, the Ontario Pilot Survival Knife, which is made out of butter, you don't have the size and the weight to make any kind of use out of a thicker edge. A thicker edge is less efficient for basically everything, but it is significantly tougher. So to make up for the fact that the thicker edge is less efficient, you need more size, you need more weight, and then you can actually hack stuff and use the thicker edge. So, there are actually two versions of the Midnight Patriot. This guy is like basically, I talked to Josh, the owner and the maker. Basically, this is like a combat apocalypse knife, like not necessarily a modern combat knife, not necessarily a fighting knife, but like apocalypse, you need to not worry about whether or not this knife is going to hold together, because you're in a crap sandwich. That's what this thing is designed for. There's no excuses to this thick edge, and it does affect performance. I've actually used this knife more than I typically do on a first impressions video. I've chopped potatoes with it, used it in the kitchen. It's not a kitchen knife, guys. Was I able to perform the tasks? Yes, I was, but not a kitchen knife, thick edge, right? And on the flip side of that, I've also used this for batoning. So my seasoned twisty oak that is so hard on blades was so easy with this knife comparatively. And the reason is where a thinner knife or a full flat grind knife can bend to conform to the twists in the grain, which is what destroys blades, by the way. I'll mention that in a second. There's no bend in this thing. It just pops that wood open because it's not going to bend a bit. And for people who like to comment about what is or isn't impressive when I do my batoning, and they'll mention, pry tests and other stuff. When you bend a knife in this axis, but you also twist, that's where you rip edges. That's where stuff gets really hard on knives. But there's no bending whatsoever with this blade. It's an absolute beast mode. So, I like it a lot. Now, for almost everybody, except for someone specifically looking for a beast mode knife, the standard Midnight Patriot in 3/16 of an inch stock thickness with a little bit thinner edge is going to be your ideal camp knife. It's going to be more of a typical survival knife, camp knife, fire prep. In 8670 or 80CRV2, it's still going to be tougher than anything that you're going to need it to be tougher for, most likely. But we went for the Opaco combat knife option. We will be smashing on this knife, and I can't wait, and I think it's going to handle it fantastically. I'm really excited about what Josh is doing over at Redbeard Blades. He makes a fantastic product. I'm really excited about this knife. I've been following Josh for a really long time. I first saw his work when I went to the boot camp for History Channel's Alone Season 2. Justin Vidito was carrying it. And so, of course, being a knife nerd, when I was at this boot camp, I was going around to everybody and checking out what everybody had. I myself had a big old Nepalese kukri at the time. And the one that really caught my eye, I think the only custom knife at the boot camp was the Viper from Redbeard Blades from Josh. And so, I got to know him. I'm obviously friends with Justin and got to know Josh. He makes some really good stuff, guys. Former Army sniper, high speed, low drag dude, and he's making knives to be used. So I'm stoked on this. You can expect to see this thing being pounded on quite a bit. I do not expect to see any failures under any type of use. And then, as usual, my long-term review will come in about a year. And so I'll compile all of the footage from about a year's use and abuse, and I'll share what I think at that point. At that point, this knife will be in custom sheath, obviously, and we'll talk about that as well. So, Redbeard Blades, you're going to be able to find him on Instagram and his website. They'll be in the description box below. Also, if you enjoy this content, consider subscribing and supporting the channel. I have more affordable ways to support the channel now than ever before. We've got a Patreon. We've got some exciting stuff coming on Patreon. For less than the cost of a coffee a month, you can support this channel and help me generate content that is helpful for you. Also, my brand, Exodus Knife and Tool. I don't always have knives in stock. They sell out pretty quick, but if you like the brand, you can pick up a hat. We've got keychains. Beach and Tactical, I make rifle slings, but I've also got affordable stuff like patches, the Prepper's Bunker Outdoor patches, etc. All that's going to be in the description box below, so if you guys enjoy the content, consider supporting over there. And Josh, his wait times are shorter than ever. The biggest thing with Josh in the past was he's works elsewhere, right? It was hard to get a knife from him because he's one guy making a fantastic product. There's a line of people waiting for him, and he's got to make them one at a time, but he's finally able to get more knives out, so I highly suggest go to Redbeard Blades website, which I'm going to assume now is redbeardblades.com, but check the description box in case I'm wrong. Get on his email list, man. You don't want to miss when he does drops, and you don't want to miss when he does custom pre-orders. So, that's what I've got. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you in the comment section.